Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. After the overwhelming moment when the truth was revealed, all the emotions still seemed intact. Not yet settled, not yet fully defined, but enough to make the three of them unable to keep their distance as before. Hoai Ca, Hùng, and the brother who had been lost for more than 20 years, at last, could sit together, in the same space, a very close distance, yet carrying such great meaning. No longer strangers on two sides, no longer hesitant glances, no longer silent doubts lingering in their thoughts. Only emotions remained, whole, genuine, and no longer needing to be hidden. What had just happened was not merely a confirmed truth, but a door that had just been opened, allowing what had long been hidden a chance to be spoken. They talked for a long time, without rushing, without interruption, just each sentence, each word, gently continuing one after another, from the past to the present, each small story, each seemingly insignificant detail, but when placed together, gradually forming a picture not perfect, not complete, with empty spaces, with things no longer clearly remembered, with memories faded over time, but still enough to feel one thing: the bond of family had never disappeared. It had always existed, quietly, silently, only covered by time, blurred by years of separation. And now, given the chance, it began to appear again, more clearly, closer, more real. The brother began to share, not with embellishment, not with prepared words, but with what he had lived through, years away from home, with no one beside him, no support, only himself, facing everything alone, in an unfamiliar place, with entirely unfamiliar things. He went abroad for labor work, a choice, not out of desire, but out of necessity, a need for a path to change his life, a need for an opportunity to step beyond previous limits. The jobs he did were not always easy, not always what he had hoped for. There were days just trying to get through. There were times just enduring to continue. The hardship was not expressed through words, but visible in small details, in the way he spoke, in his eyes, in the quiet heaviness of his voice. All of it, not to complain, not to boast, but simply a part of his journey, a long journey, not easy, but necessary. Everything he did, everything he tried, was for one purpose: to change his life, and to build something for the future. Nothing too far-fetched, just the hope of standing firmly, of creating a better foundation for the years ahead. As for Hoai Ca and Hùng, they held nothing back. No hiding, no avoidance, just sharing what was theirs. They talked about their current life, a life not abundant, but not lacking either. There were peaceful days, but also times of deep thought, difficulties, not always visible, but always present, in every decision, in every plan, unfinished intentions, not yet realized, not because they didn't want to, but because conditions were not yet enough, and dreams still being held on to, not abandoned, but not yet able to begin. Hùng began to speak about his plan, not something new, but something he had long considered, about investing in a wood workshop, a project, no longer a vague idea, but something clearly envisioned. He believed it was not just a new step, but an opportunity that could change their lives, not only for himself, but for both of them. What he said was not unrealistic, but carefully thought through, considered, viewed from many angles. And not stopping there, he had thought further, not just one direction, but multiple possibilities, expanding, developing, making use of what they had, to create more value. Among them was making use of an old piece of land, not leaving it empty, not wasting it, but turning it into something useful, a football field, not just an idea, but a way to create an additional stable income, an income source that might not be large at first, but enough to sustain, enough to support, and enough to build a long-term foundation. Everything seemed calculated, not a rushed decision, not a fleeting thought, but a plan, with direction, with goals, with preparation. But no matter how clear everything seemed, there was still one thing that could not be ignored. The biggest issue was not the idea, was not the plan, but the most practical thing of all. Money. A number. Impossible to avoid. A sum. Not small at all. Enough to make anyone pause, think more carefully, consider more deeply, before deciding. And when it came to that, no one needed to say more. All three of them understood. Taking a bank loan was no longer a distant possibility, but was becoming a choice. A choice that came with responsibility, not just borrowing, but carrying debt, carrying pressure, carrying things not immediately visible. Hoai Ca sat beside them, listening to everything, saying little, not interrupting, just quietly taking it all in. Her eyes could not hide her concern, not because she didn't believe, not because she didn't support, but because she understood that this was an opportunity, but also a challenge, a step forward, but also a potential burden. If they borrowed, everything would change. No longer the gentle days as before, no longer the familiar stability, but numbers to calculate every month, interest to be paid, responsibilities that could not be delayed, and risks impossible to foresee. No one could be certain that everything would go as planned. No one could guarantee that nothing unexpected would happen, and that gradually changed the atmosphere. No longer the initial openness, no longer the lightness of sharing, but a silence where no one spoke, but everyone was thinking. The conversation paused there, not because it had ended, but because there were things that needed more time, more consideration, before they could continue. But then, right in that silence that seemed to stretch on, the brother, the one who had just found his sister again after more than 2 decades, suddenly spoke up. Not loudly, not interrupting, just a moment, when he decided to say what he had been thinking. He looked at them. His eyes no longer carried just the earlier emotion, but determination, a certainty, unwavering, without hesitation. No need for more time to consider, no need to ask again, no need to think any longer, as if that decision had been formed long ago, only waiting for the right moment to be spoken. And then he spoke. His voice was not loud, but clear, firm, no beating around the bush, no long explanations, just simply saying one thing that made both Hoai Ca and Hùng freeze, not because they didn't hear clearly, but because they couldn't believe what they had just heard. He would lend them the money, Not just a small part, not just temporary support, but the entire amount needed to carry out the plan. A short sentence, but carrying great weight. A decision, not simple at all. Not something just anyone could make. No interest, no conditions, no obligations, no terms attached, no requirements to meet, just a statement, yet enough to change everything. Simply, a helping hand, not from a stranger, not from a distant relationship, but from family, from a brother who had just found his sister again. That amount of money was not meaningless, not something easily obtained, but everything he had saved. After years of working abroad, long days, endless working hours, moments of pushing through exhaustion, just to continue, sweat, effort, and the long months away, did not step back, did not reconsider, only stood firm in what he had said, not out of obligation, not out of duty, but out of love. A love, interrupted for too long, but never lost. He had missed too many years, not being present in his sister's life, not witnessing what she had been through, not being there when she needed him. Those years could not be taken back, could not be compensated with words. And now, when he had the chance, this was something he could do. Not the only thing, but the most tangible one. Not to show favor, not to create difference, but to make up for it, in a simple way, but sincere. The atmosphere fell silent once more, but this time, it was no longer heavy, no longer pressure, no longer worry, but a different kind of silence. A silence filled with emotion, filled with feelings that didn't need to be spoken. Hung looked at the brother. His eyes no longer held the earlier hesitation, but respect, a very clear sense of gratitude. He understood what was happening before him was not just help, not just money given to solve a problem, but trust, a trust given freely, without conditions, a trust he could not afford to lose, could not take lightly, could not ignore, because behind it was emotion, expectation, and a bond that had just been restored. Hoai Ca sat there, silent, her emotions rising, no longer held back as before, no longer able to contain them. Finally, she could not stay silent anymore. No need for many words, no need for explanations, just a nod, gentle, but clear, an acceptance, not because it was easy, not because it felt light, but because she understood that, sometimes, refusing could hurt more. She accepted the help, not as something obvious, but with appreciation, and deep inside, a promise, unspoken, but very clear, to try her best, to not let this trust become meaningless, to not let what he had given be wasted. Both of them expressed their thanks, not long, not elaborate, not fancy, just simple words, but sincere, from the heart. No need to show too much, but enough for the other person to understand that what had just happened was not just a decision, but a connection that had begun to grow stronger. After everything, from that moment, everything seemed to change. Not a loud transformation, not a turning point that could be immediately recognized, but a very clear feeling, lighter. The burden that had weighed heavily on their minds during the time before seemed to be lifted. No more nights spent calculating, no more silent moments filled with worry. No more standing before a big decision, not knowing where to begin. All of it gradually faded into the background. They no longer had to worry about bank loans, no longer had to weigh every number, no longer had to think about interest payments. Those invisible pressures that could have lasted for a long time. The things that once made them hesitate, once made them uncertain, now were no longer the biggest obstacles, no longer the constant worry. Whenever the plan was mentioned, what remained was a path, a clearer path, at least for now. Not a perfect path, not a path without risks, but a path where they could see the direction, a plan, no longer just on paper, no longer just unfinished thoughts, but gradually becoming real, step by step, detail by detail. Everything was being rearranged. No more vague feelings, no more uncertainty like before, but movement, a slow movement, yet with direction. They began to look at the plan, not just with hope, but with preparation. What was once only an intention, now had the conditions to begin, had the opportunity to try, had the foundation to move forward. And that created a different feeling, a feeling both relieving and motivating. But even when everything seemed more favorable, even when the path ahead appeared clearer, one thing remained unchanged. The path of business has never been easy. Having capital does not mean everything will go as expected. Having the conditions does not guarantee reaching the final result. Capital is only the beginning, an important beginning, but not enough, because behind it are many other things. How to use resources, decisions that must be made, unexpected situations that can happen at any time. Those things cannot be fully prepared for, cannot be completely calculated, and cannot be avoided. That is why, even though the burden had been reduced, even though the financial pressure was no longer as heavy, the road ahead still held many things to face. Would Hung be able to turn the plan into reality? Not just to begin, but to reach a result. Would what he had calculated, what he had believed in, stand firm against reality? Would the wood workshop not only exist, but also grow? Would the expansion plans not remain just ideas, but become the next steps? And most importantly, would all of that truly bring a better life? Not just in the short term, but in the long run. A change that could be sustained, a direction that could continue. Or ahead, were there still challenges yet to appear, difficulties not yet revealed, unexpected events that could change everything? No one could be certain, no one could answer in advance, because every step carries a different possibility, and that is what makes this journey unpredictable. But also because of that, it is worth following, worth waiting for. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what happens next. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the upcoming exciting developments.
Xin chào mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình đang làm video. Hiện tại thì mình vẫn chưa có làm xong và mình vẫn đang tiếp tục làm video của Hoài Ca và Hùng cho mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì đã theo dõi video của mình và hy vọng rằng sẽ vẫn tiếp tục gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo nhé. Bây giờ thì mình mới đang làm thôi và cũng chưa có làm xong. mọi người. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video